The month of Bhadra is about to end tomorrow. Purnima at the end of the month. Today is the disappearance day by lunar calendar of Haridas Thakura. Disappearance day of Haridas Thakura. So we're going to read, I would like to read, Antya-lila chapter 11. Really nice chapter, the passing of Haridas Thakura. Some appreciation just at the beginning. The author of Caitanya Charitamrita was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And to my knowledge, he had no association with Haridas Thakura. But he had association with one who had the association of Haridas Thakura. Firsthand. And that first-hand association person was Raghunath Das Goswami. And as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami does with every chapter, at the end of every chapter, he prays at the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, always desiring their mercy. I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Just Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, when he wrote Caitanya Charitamrita, he was really old. Really, really old. He writes in a few places, I don't know if I'll be able to finish. That kind of situation. But he was carrying on because he was requested by the Vaishnavas to capture the life and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in a simple language form, simple Bengali form, although I was told by people that are Bengali, his language is like Sanskrit. But he was a Sanskrit scholar deluxe. His other writings are elegant and wonderful Sanskrit, very, very beautiful poetry and so forth and so on. Govinda Lilamrita. But his purpose was to preserve, at the request of the Vaishnavas, to preserve for future generations, that means us, the life and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So once again, he never had, to my knowledge, he never had association of Haridas Thakura, but there's lots of details about Haridas Thakura, and the ecstatic mood with which he begins this chapter makes it very clear. He has profound feelings of affection for Haridas Thakura. And it comes out, I'm saying that because it comes out in the preliminary verses. Commonly in Caitanya Charitamrita, the structure is 2 verses. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda. And then one other verse that says something about the personalities in the chapter, and then he goes on. In this chapter, and I'll try my best to recite, 9 verses of all of that. I take it that he's speaking about Haridas Thakura, he's ecstatic. Because Raghunath Das, who he heard from, must have been ecstatic in describing, for everybody's benefit, Lord Chaitanya's life and teachings as he heard it and understood it from Sarup Damodar. Yesterday morning, we heard a description of one of the final books that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote called Bhagavat Arka Marichimala. Maybe you remember seeing that painting, where Sarup Damodar came in a vision before Bhaktivinoda Thakur and instructed him to write the book, and gave elaborate teachings on the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is how Bhagavad Arka Marichimala begins. So, point is, Srup Damodar has his influence in the lives of exalted Vaishnavas and certainly in the life of Raghunath Das. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srup Damodar, Raghunath Das, Krishna Das Kaviraj to us. And we have that same, it's like, the electric wire that's plugged into the outlet. You have the same electricity as any of the other interval points along that line. So he's ecstatic for good reason. And let's see if we can pick up on his ecstasy, and then he begins describing the passing of Haridas Thakura. The chapter summary begins, very short. The summary of this chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, which is a commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, one of his 100 books, as follows. In this chapter it is described how Brahma, Haridas Thakura, gave up his body with the consent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how the Lord himself personally performed the funeral ceremony and carried the body to the sea. He personally, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, personally entombed the body, covered it with sand, and erected a platform on the site. After taking a bath in the sea, he personally begged prasad of Jagannath from shopkeepers and distributed prasadam to the assembled devotees. That's the chapter summary. So here we go, Krishna Das Kaviraj beginning. Namami Haridasa tam Chaitanya tam cha tat prabhum samstatam api yan murtim svanke kritva nanartatya. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Haridas Thakura and his master, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who danced with the body of Haridas Thakura on his lap. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Daya Maya Daya Maya Daya Maya, to the most merciful. Daya Maya. Jaya Dvaita Priya Nityananda Priya Jaya. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is very merciful. Daya Maya. And who is very dear to Advaita Acharya and Lord Nityananda. Jaya Srinivasa Ishvara Haridasa Natha Jaya Gadadhar Priya Swarup Prananatha. All glories to the master of Srinivas Thakura. All glories to the master of Haridas Thakura. All glories to the dear master of Gadadhar Pandit. All glories to the master of the life of Swarup Damodar, Swarup Prananath. Jaya Kashi Priya Jagadananda Praneshwara Jaya Rupa Sanatana Raghunatheshwara. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya, who is very dear to Kashi Mishra. He is the Lord of the life of Jagadananda. In the next chapters, the pastimes of Jagadananda. And the Lord of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Raghunath Dasa Goswami. Jaya Gora Deha Krishna Swayam Bhagavan Kripa Kali Deha Prabhu Nija Padadan. All glories to the transcendental form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear Lord, kindly give me shelter at your lotus feet by your causeless mercy. Jaya Nityananda Chandra, Jaya Chaitanyera Prana, Tamara Charanara Vinde Bhakti Deha Dana. All glories to Lord Nityananda, who is the life and soul of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's saying the other way around. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the life and soul of Nityananda. Nityananda is the life and soul of Chaitanya. My dear Lord, kindly give me engagement in devotional service at your lotus feet. 2 more, 3 more. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Chaitanyera Arya Sve Charane Bhakti Deha Jaya Dvaita Charya. All glories to Advaita Charya, who is treated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as superior due to his age and respectability. Exclamation point. Please give me engagement in devotional service at your lotus feet. Jaya Gora Bhakta Gana Gora Yandra Prana Sabha Bhakta Mile Mora Bhakti Deha Dana. All glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the Lord is their life and soul. All of you, kindly bestow devotional service upon me. 1 more. Jai Rupa Sanatan Jiva Raghunath Raghunatha Gopal Chaya Mora Nath. All glories to Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and Gopal Bhatta Goswami, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. They are all my masters. So he's contemporary of all of them, although elder to some of them, but he's seeing them as his masters, all of them. Then, continuing, I am writing this narration of the pastime and attributes of the Lord by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. I do not know how to write properly, but I am purifying myself by writing this description. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus resided at Jagannath Puri with his personal devotees and enjoyed the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in the daytime. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in dancing and chanting and singing the temple of Lord Jagannath. At night, in the company of his most confidential devotees, such as Ramananda Rai and Sarup Damodar Goswami, he tasted the nectar of the transcendental mellows of Lord Sri Krishna's pastimes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very happily passed his days in this way at Nilachala, Jagannath Puri. Feeling separation from Krishna, he exhibited many transcendental symptoms all over his body. Day after day, the symptoms increased. And at night, they increased even more. All these symptoms, such as transcendental anxiety, agitation, and talking like a madman, were present, just as they are described in Shastras. Srup Damodar and Ramananda Rai, chief assistants of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, remained with him both day and night. One day, Govinda, the personal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, went in great jubilation to deliver the remnants of Lord Jagannath's food to Haridas Thakura. When Govinda came to Haridas, he saw that Haridas was lying on his back and chanting his rounds very slowly. Please rise and take your Mahaprasad, Govinda said. Haridas Thakura replied, Today I shall observe fasting. I have not finished chanting my regular number of rounds. How then can I eat? But you have brought Mahaprasadam, and how can I neglect it? Saying this, he offered prayers to the Mahaprasadam, took a little portion and ate it. The next day, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to Haridas' place and inquired from Haridas, "Are you well?" Haridas offered his obeisances to the Lord and replied, "My body is all right, but my mind and intelligence are not well." Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu further inquired from Haridas, "Can you ascertain what your disease is?" Haridas replied, "My disease is that I cannot complete my rounds." "Now that you have become old," the Lord said, "you may reduce the number of rounds you chant daily. You are already liberated, and therefore you need not follow the regular principles very strictly. Your role in this incarnation is to deliver the people in general. You have sufficiently preached the glories of the holy name in this world," the Lord concluded. "Now, therefore, please reduce the fixed number of times you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Like an instruction. Haridas Thakura replied, "Kindly hear my plea. I was born in an inferior family, and my body is most abominable. I always engage in low work. Therefore, I am the lowest and most condemned of men. I am unseeable and untouchable, but you have accepted me as your servant. This means that you have delivered me from a hellish condition and raised me to the Vaikuntha platform. My dear Lord, you are the fully independent personality of Godhead. You act by your own free will. You cause the whole world to dance, and you act as you like. My dear Lord, by your mercy, you have made me dance in many ways. For example, I was offered Shraddha Patra, which should have been offered to first-class brahmanas. I ate it, even though I was born in a family of meat-eaters. I have but one desire for a very long time. I think that quite soon, my Lord, you will bring a close to your pastimes within this material world. I wish that you not show me this closing chapter of your pastimes. Before that time comes, kindly let my body fall down in your presence. I wish to catch your lotus feet upon my heart and see your moon-like face. With my tongue, I shall chant your holy name, Sri Krishna Caitanya. That is my desire. Kindly let me give up my body in this way. O most merciful Lord, it is by your mercy, if by your mercy it is possible, kindly grant my desire. Let this low-born body fall down before you. You can make possible this perfection of all my desires. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, my dear Haridas, Krishna is so merciful that he must execute whatever you want. But whatever happiness is mine is all due to your association. It is not fitting for you to go away and leave me behind. Catching the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakura said, my Lord, do not create any illusions. Although I am so fallen, you must certainly show me this mercy. My Lord, there are many respectable personalities, millions of devotees, who are fit to sit on my head. They are all helpful in your pastimes, my Lord. If an insignificant insect like me dies, what is the loss? If an ant dies, where is the loss? To the material world. My Lord, you are always affectionate to your devotees. I am just an imitation devotee. Bhakta Abbas. But nevertheless, I wish that you fulfill my desire. That is my expectation. Mora Ash. Because he had to perform his noon duties, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got up to leave, but it was settled that the following day, after he saw Lord Jagannath, he would return to visit Haridas Thakura. So Mahaprabhu was regulated. After embracing him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left to perform his noon duties and went to the sea to take his bath. The next morning, after visiting the Jagannath temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accompanied by all his devotees, went hastily to see Haridas Thakura. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the devotees came before Haridas Thakura, offered his respects to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the Vaishnavas. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired, "My dear Haridas, what is the news?" Haridas Thakura replied, "My Lord, whatever mercy you can bestow upon me." Upon hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately began congregational chanting in the courtyard. Prakeshwara Pandit was the chief dancer. Headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami, all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu surrounded Haridas Thakura and began congregational chanting. In front of the great devotees like Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to describe the holy attributes of Haridas Thakura. As he described the transcendental attributes of Haridas Thakura, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seemed to possess 5 mouths. The more he described, the more his great happiness increased. After hearing the transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakura, all the devotees were present were struck with wonder. They all offered their respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of Haridas Thakura. Haridas Thakura made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sit down in front of him, and then he fixed his eyes like 2 bumblebees on the lotus face of the Lord. He held the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on his heart, and then took the dust of the feet of all the devotees present and put it on his head. He began to chant the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya again and again, and he drank the sweetness of the face of the Lord. As he drank the sweetness of the face of the Lord, tears constantly glided from his eyes. While chanting the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he gave up his air of life and left his body. Seeing the wonderful death of Haridas Thakura by his own will, which was just like a great mystic yogi's, everyone remembered the passing of Bhishma. There was a tumultuous noise as they all chanted the holy names Hari and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with ecstatic love. The Lord raised the body of Haridas Thakura and placed it on his lap. Then he began to dance in the courtyard in great ecstatic love. Because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, all the devotees were helpless. And in ecstatic love, they also began to dance and chant congregationally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced for some time, and then Swarup Damodar Goswami informed him of other rituals for the body of Haridas Thakura. The body of Haridas Thakura was then raised onto a carrier like a platform, see if it gives palanquin that resembled an airship, and taken to the sea, accompanied by congregational chanting. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in front of the procession, and Vikreshwar Pandit, along with the other devotees, chanted and danced behind him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bathed the body of Haridas in the sea and then declared, "From this day on, this sea has become a great pilgrimage site." Everyone drank the water that had touched the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur, and then they smeared remnants of Lord Jagannath's sandalwood pulp over Haridas Thakur's body. After a hole was dug in the sand, the body of Haridas Thakur was placed into it. Remnants from Lord Jagannath, such as his silken ropes, sandalwood pulp, food, and cloth, were placed on the body. All around the body, the devotees performed congregational chanting, and Vikreshwar Pandit danced in jubilation. With his transcendental hands, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally covered the body of Haridas Thakur with sand, chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol. The devotees covered the body with Haridas Thakur with sand and then constructed a platform upon the site. The platform was protected all around by fencing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and chanted all around the platform, and the holy names of Hari roared tumultuously. The whole universe became filled with the vibration. After Sankirtan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bathed in the sea with his devotees, swimming and playing in the water in great jubilation. However, after circumambulating the tomb of Haridas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the Singhadwara gate at the Jagannath temple. The whole city chanted in congregation, and the tumultuous sound vibrated all over the city. Approaching the Singhadwara gate, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spread his cloth and began to beg prasadam from the shopkeepers there. "I am begging prasadam for the festival honoring the passing away of Haridas Thakur," the Lord said. "Please give me alms." Hearing this, all the shopkeepers immediately came forward with big baskets of prasadam, which they jubilantly delivered to Lord Chaitanya. However, Srila Damodar stopped them, and the shopkeepers returned to their shops and sat down with their baskets. Srila Damodar sent Chaitanya Mahaprabhu back to his residence and kept with him 4 Vaishnavas and 4 servant carriers. Srila Damodar said to all the shopkeepers, "Deliver me 4 palmfuls of prasadam from each and every item." In this way, varieties of prasadam were collected, then packed up in different loads and carried on the heads of the 4 servants. Not only did Srila Damodar Goswami bring prasadam, but Vaninath Patanayaka and Kashi Mishra also sent large quantities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made all the devotees sit in rows and personally began to distribute the prasadam, assisted by 4 other men. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not accustomed to taking prasadam in small quantities. He therefore put on each plate what at least 5 men could eat. Srila Damodar requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "Please sit down and watch with these men to help me. I shall distribute the prasadam." The 4 men, Srila Damodar, Jagannatha, Kashishwara, and Shankara, distributed the prasad continuously. All the devotees who sat down would not eat the prasadam as long as the Lord had not eaten. On that day, however, Kashi Mishra had extended an invitation to the Lord. Therefore, Kashi Mishra personally went there and delivered prasadam to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great attention and made him eat. With Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down and accepted the prasad. When he began to eat, So did all the Vaishnavas. Everyone was filled up to the neck because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept telling the distributors, give them more, give them more. After all the devotees finished accepting prasadam and had washed their hands and mouths, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decorated each of them with a flower garland and sandalwood pulp. Overwhelmed with ecstatic love, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered a benediction to all the devotees, which all the devotees heard with great satisfaction. Here's the benediction. Anyone who has seen the festival of Sri Haridas Thakura's passing away, anyone who has chanted and danced here, anyone who has offered sand on the body of Haridas Thakura, and anyone who has joined this festival to partake of the prasadam, will achieve the favor of Krishna very soon. There is such wonderful power in seeing Haridas Thakura being merciful upon me. Krishna gave me the association of Haridas Thakura. Being independent in his desires, he has now broken that association. When Haridas Thakura wanted to leave this material world, it was not within my power to detain him. Simply by his will, Haridas Thakura could give up his life and go away exactly like Bhishma, who previously died simply by his own desire, as we have heard from the Shastra. Haridas Thakura was the crown jewel on the head of the world. Without him, this world is now bereft of its valuable jewel. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told everyone, say, all glories to Haridas Thakura, and chant the holy name of Hari. Saying this, he personally began to dance. Everyone began to chant, all glories to Haridas Thakura, who revealed the importance of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thereafter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to all the devotees, and he himself, with mixed feelings of happiness and distress, took rest. Thus I have spoken about the victorious passing away of Haridas Thakura. Anyone who hears this narration will certainly fix his mind firmly in the devotional service to Krishna. From the incident of Haridas Thakura's passing away and the great care Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took in commemorating it, one can understand just how affectionate he, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is towards his devotees. Although he is the topmost of all sannyasis, he fully satisfied the desires of Haridas Thakura. When Haridas Thakura was at the last stage of his life, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him company and allowed him to touch him. Thereafter, he took the body of Thakur Haridas on his lap and personally danced with it. Out of his causeless mercy, the Lord personally covered the body of Haridas Thakura with sand and personally begged alms from the shopkeepers. Then he conducted a great festival to celebrate the passing away of Haridas Thakura. Haridas Thakura was not only the topmost devotee of the Lord, but also a great and learned scholar. It was his great fortune that he passed away before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just 3 more verses. The life and characteristics of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are exactly like an ocean of nectar, one drop of which can please the mind and ear. Anyone who desires to cross over the ocean of nescience, please hear with great faith the life and characteristics of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Final. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Srila Haridas Thakura ki. Now my plan is this evening to cover the whole life of Haridas Thakura. I mean, most of it. So we'll need PowerPoint for that. Today's the 9th and tomorrow's the 10th. This is a Bhadra Purnim bulletin. As I said a few days back, think of some ways that each one of us not just the Prabhus in the temple that look after book distribution, but how you might be an instrument to help persons that don't have Srimad Bhagavatam receive it. We'll get another opportunity when it comes Gaura Purnima. They'll do the same thing. Encourage people to take Chaitanya Charitamrita. I guarantee it's going to be a big push. But it's very wonderful. It's really great timing. Balaram's appearance, Krishna's appearance, Radharani's appearance, Bhadra Purnima. So consider. You probably have already considered, but just consider. And how to honor the appearance of the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam in that way. I'm sure the temple will have some function. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haridas Thakura ki jai.